with where we left last time. So कुछ बताइए last time what we were discussing. We talked about structuralism and all those things, various paradigms of research. We'll not be talking about types of research etc. वो आप लोगों ने already कर लिया है different types और वो सब books में भी दिया होगा. Even जो हम लोग discuss करेंगे वो भी कहीं ना कहीं दिया होगा, but still because it relates to another field, that is the philosophy behind any research, right? So maybe we'll have some explanations, some interpretations, or something that we otherwise find very difficult to understand. Not just for you, even for us, certain things are very, very complicated. Right? So, but as all of you are or will be joining the teaching fraternity, it will be always good to have these types of information. It's not like we are not doing it like a PG or an undergraduate student. This is just for the passing of exams. These things are going to remain for very, very long period of time, in fact, for the rest of our lives. Right. So, actually that day somebody talked about a word, ontology, right? Whether what we were discussing is about ontology. So, we'll start with that only. Okay, and then we'll look at other things. So ontology basically is a very, very basic term of philosophy which deals with, broadly it deals with existence. You know, when you ask those existential questions, what is existence, what is life, what is being, and then you have all those quotations, to be or not to be, famous Shakespearean quotation, or what is the source of being. Being, when we say being, means existence of anything. What is reality, and how do we understand reality the way we understand it? Now these things may look a little confusing, but if you think deeply, you will see that there is something to it. So let's look at these things. So someone said that power is the mark of being. The existence depends upon the power. Anything's existence depends upon the power it carries. So when one says that I'm feeling helpless or powerless, so actually we are questioning our own existence at some level. Now power can be interpreted in different ways. So for example, power to do something, to be able to do something, power to influence. For example, a leader has a power to influence a lot of people, influencing people's lives, influencing the course of things that take place in the world. Similarly, another writer, Berkeley, said that to be is to be perceived. Right. So, if I am aware of your being, then only you exist. You do not exist if I don't perceive you. You're getting it? My existence depends upon your perceiving me, and vice versa. Your existence depends upon if I perceive you, or I take you into cognizance. Otherwise, there is no being. You can compare the same thing with, those terms that we use in Indian philosophy, like, Maya and reality and perception. Brahm and Maya. So, like Indian philosophy में किसी ने कहा कि the world is, क्या बोलते हैं उसको, मिथ्या. It's a Brahm or mithya, or it is somebody's dream. It's not a reality, it is somebody's dream. So those kinds of things. Basically, ontology talks about, or rather tries to understand the reality. So we ask questions like, what is reality? What is the nature of reality? And it is here we use two terms. One second. Okay, so it is here where we discuss two terms. Reality and relativity. Reality and relativity. Or realism and relativism. That also you can write. Realism and relativism. These are actually two it's like a range. It's like a continuum. So there are some people who believe in this, and there are some people who progressively believe in this. We'll just see how. People who believe in realism or reality believe that reality is one. There is one reality. Everything else is not real. Or reality can only be one thing. Right? Singular reality as we call it. Right? And people who believe in relativity or relativism believe that there may be multiple variants of reality. Reality is not one, but there can be multiple realities. Same thing can be seen from different perspectives, right? Or there can be parallel realities. So you can see from singular to multiple, there is a range of possibilities, right? Then there are a few other things that ontologists discuss. For example, there are many things, but that will be too detailed. Just we'll take two things. One is what we call particulars and universals. And universals. Universal पहले लिखना चाहिए था मुझे. Universals and particulars. So there are these two aspects of things. There are, for example, redness. Something is red in color. So the property of that thing is redness. So redness is a universal. Then a tomato is red. That's a particular, right? A cherry is red, that is also a particular. Blood is red, that is also a particular. Now the question would be whether a tomato, a cherry, a strawberry, a blood, because they belong to the same universal, are they the same things? Or what differentiates these different entities, these particulars from the universals? Is it only the redness that binds all these things together? Or there are some other properties that we need to study and discuss? Well, one can say that okay, probably cherry and tomatoes belong to the same botanical category. Both are plant-based. Uh, I'm not a student of botany, but maybe something is common there. Blood is an entirely different thing. So just having a red in common doesn't mean that everything is common. So what else can be there when we are talking about the universal?
Their qualities.
Right. So what qualities? Again, like cherry and tomatoes, they may have some similar qualities, other than their being red. So redness is something that uh, sort of unifies them. Right. Uh, but then that doesn't make them similar. Otherwise, we wouldn't have different things like tomatoes and strawberries and cherries, etc. So everything red will not be uh, the same thing. So then there may be different universals. You see, this is where we also discuss things like categorization. You know, हम लोग जो भी subjects पढ़ते हैं, we try to fit things into categories. In biology, we species and all those categories are there. So whenever something new is there, we try to fit in some existing category, or we try to draw a new category. अगर कोई नई चीज किसी भी existing category में fit नहीं हो रही है, तो we try to name a new category and fit it there. So this was about particular and universal, and then there is another thing that is concrete and abstract. Something that is concrete and something that is abstract. So concrete is more like tangibles, things, objects, human beings, plants, everything that is tangible is concrete. And abstract things that are creations of mind, numbers. Now once again we need to synthesize the two, concrete as well as abstract. You know, 5 human beings, 10 chairs. Somewhere we are synthesizing the two, right? So basically in ontology we try to understand or answer questions like what is reality, whether there is one reality or whether there is multiple realities, can multiple realities exist together, do we simply accept only one reality and reject all other things. Now, exception of one reality or exception of multiple reality will depend upon some other paradigms. That will be the researcher's point of view. You know, as a researcher, when we are trying to study any phenomenon, we have certain things in our minds. We already have something in our mind. We begin with our own notion of reality. And then how we are going to interpret the reality, that will be later on depending upon what approach we take, what paradigm we use. Research paradigms as we call it. So at one level we talk about ontology is something like a grand abstract thing. Then we narrow it down. So next is what we call the epistemology that we discussed the other day. Epistemology, that is what is the nature of knowledge. Right? So how do I know what I know? How do I get knowledge? So again there are these two things that we study in epistemology: the nature of knowledge itself and the limits of knowledge. Both are important. So how do I know? Nature of knowledge And what is the limit to the knowledge? Nature and limits. Right? So that is what is covered in epistemology. Right? And then we further narrow it down, and this is where our real work starts, the methodology. So now we know that this is the knowledge we are looking for. So how exactly we are going to do it? Right? So observation, experimentation, establishing relationships, quantitative relationships, drawing correlations between various variables, etc., etc. How exactly we are going to do it? So from ontology, like a very broad thing about nature of reality, to nature of knowledge, to method. So this is how we narrow down. At another level, we are looking at what we call the paradigms of research. So there are, in fact, there are many ways we can look at it, but we'll restrict ourselves to just 2 or 3 types of paradigms. Basically, we can begin with what we call, उस दिन आप लोगों को याद होगा, we discussed something like, I think we discussed a term like positivism. Modernity हम लोगों ने discuss किया था, right? Okay. And how scientific method comes in modernity, or modern knowledge is about scientific. And I ask you a question: why is scientific method considered so big or so great? What is so great about scientific, being scientific, etc.?
Yeah.
So, positivism is an approach, is a paradigm where the researcher believes that there is a dualism between the researcher and the subject. Like researcher exists outside the subject. So as a researcher, I am studying a subject as an outsider. You know, from outside I am looking into a subject and studying it. The researcher is independent of the subject, and the subject is independent of the researcher, and both do not influence each other. That's a very ideal situation. That is, the researcher is not affected by, and the subject is also not affected by the researcher. Now, this is a very ideal situation, and a lot of people later on wrote about it, that actually it is not possible for a researcher to be absolutely objective. 100% objectivity is not achievable. We are going to be some way affected, or we might affect. Actually, it has happened many times, and I mean, I know at least one person. He was a researcher in sociology. He was studying tribal life and tribes, etc. So for data collection, he went to some tribal areas in Bastar, etc. And he left his research and actually started participating in tribals activism and all. He was so much affected by the subject, that he started participating in that. So again, the question can be, I mean, there can be an ethical question whether the researcher has to be a part of the subject or he has to be absolutely outside the subject. But this happens. As a researcher, we may have some prejudices, some biasnesses, rightly or wrongly, that's another thing. And when we are actually going for research, how much objective can we remain? It's not possible in all cases. For example, if you're uh, researching in the area of physics or pure sciences, then probably we can remain objective. Although even there, biasnesses come. For example, uh, in biosciences, people can come with some kind of biasnesses, and as it is said, statistics can prove anything or disprove anything. There is a famous joke about it that uh, what is it like? There are three kinds of uh, lies. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. Right. So statistics can prove and disprove anything. There is a very interesting story where in one of the Indian Science Congress sessions in Chennai a few years back, there were two researchers who actually had different points of view about the same topic. It was related to some DNA analysis. So somebody tried to prove that DNA is a I'm not sure if I remember it correctly, but somebody tried to prove that with DNA you can identify some behavioral traits, and another person said just the reverse. It has nothing to do with the DNA. Both had scientific research, both had done data analysis and all. Everything was done properly, but still they can come with two different results. So there the question of the researcher's biasness has come. Right. So that is positivist view. So people who reject the positivist views that it is not possible to 100% be objective about the subject, they are also called post-positivists. That being 100% objective is not possible, therefore we can accept a bit of subjectivity. So that is one kind of paradigm. And then the other type of paradigm is what we call the interpretivism. Interpretivist and constructivist. Interpretivist and constructivist. So, reality is as per the interpretation of the researcher. We can only interpret. So, again, you see the basic question whether reality exists outside the researcher. There is something called reality, and here we are trying to interpret it in different ways. So, we interpret it the way we want. Like the same thing can be interpreted differently by different people. Or we construct the reality from scattered pieces. एक जगह से कहीं हमें नहीं मिल रहा है तो हमने अलग अलग जगहों से देखा. For example, drawing analogies. अक्सर हम लोग ये करते हैं ना, एनालॉजी ड्रॉ करते हैं कि if there is a very interesting thing in MIT. उनका एक there was Center of Organizational Learning, COL, which has professors from management over there. But interestingly, they also have a professor of physics over there, David Bohm. Professor Bohm is one of the founder members of Center for Organizational Learning. And David Bohm actually comes with a parallel theory of ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल लर्निंग. अगर आप लोगों ने कभी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन लिटरेचर पढ़ा हो या कभी इस टर्म से आपने इसके बारे में देखा हो, लर्निंग ऑर्गेनाइजेशन और ऑर्गेनाइजेशन लर्निंग, सो यू वुड सी दैट Bohm actually tried to draw parallels from some theories of physics. Similarly, change management theories. अगर change के बारे में आप लोगों ने कभी देखा हो तो. So, couple of theories from change management actually draw a direct parallel from electromagnetic field theory. What is called field theory. Right. So, it keeps on happening. कभी-कभी ऐसा naturally हो जाता है. You know, like we are not finding answers in the current paradigm, so we go outside of it. और वहां से हम ढूंढ के लाते हैं उससे मिलता जुलता कुछ. We try to draw analogies, right? So that is possible. So constructing the reality from scattered pieces, that can be one thing, and interpreting reality as we see. So in this case, we can see that the subject and the object, or the researcher and the subject, are dependent on each other. So by continuous interaction, we try to interpret or construct reality. Right. So this is the second type of paradigm. And a third type would be what we call social critical.
Sir, constructivism is a part of reality or relativity?
One second. हाँ, sorry, क्या कह रहे?
Constructivism is a part of reality or relativity?
It is like this. शायद मैं वो बना नहीं पाया. Just a second. One second. You can think of it like this. Positivism or post-positivism, right? Then constructivism or interpretivism. Social critique. Okay. Now, as a researcher, we are looking for these paradigms. Right? And based on these paradigms, we'll think about what is reality, how do we get knowledge, and what are the methods we are going to get that. Now, here, for example, when we are talking about positivism and post-positivism, and we are looking at the broad framework of ontology, here we are just answering questions like what is the nature of reality, whether reality is objective, etc. At epistemology level, we are looking at things like deciding whether it is dual, the researcher is separate from the research object, whether the findings can be replicated in the long term. So, number of things there. And at methodological level, again, because we are believing we are positivists, researcher and the object are two different things, then we can say, okay, we'll use only quantitative. You see, there is a direct relation between objective and quantitative. Because the other thing is subjective, and subjective is usually qualitative. Right. So when we are believing in objectivism, we are believing in quantitative, statistical, all those kinds of analysis in terms of methodology. When we are looking at constructivism and interpretivism, So again, at the level of ontology, we look at things like uh, reality and the perception of reality. So we are trying to interpret reality, or we are trying to construct reality. Right? So at that level. Then at the level of epistemology, we can say that okay, knowledge is interpreted. That's a belief. Knowledge can be interpreted. Reality can be understood. Or knowledge can be constructed and reality can be constructed. Then at the level of methodology, we can say interpretation, again, we are believing in constructivism. So we are saying that we'll be using qualitative methods because we are trying to construct reality. At another level, if you see, deduction and induction. When we are narrowing down in methodology, we are trying to deduct. Knowledge is deduced out of given data, etc. And in construction, we are constructing, so we are adding up. So it is more like induction. Right? So, and that is qualitative, that is subjective. Social critical was the third thing I wanted to talk about. Social critical is about, at the level of ontology, as the name suggests, it's critical. So, the fundamental belief is that the reality is what the power tells us it is. Who has the power in the society? In the structure, social structure or political structure. Whoever is powerful will frame reality. And therefore, as a researcher, we must be critical of that forced reality on us. Right? Forced reality. Whoever is in power, for example, in history, a king would want history to be written the way he or whoever is in power wants. So history is always about kings and their conquests, how many battles they won, etc., etc. Right? That is the reality that the power tried to find or try to say to others. This is the reality. Right? Sorry, something's wrong?
No, nothing. It's a commercial.
Okay, no issue. So that is one thing. So social critical is basically critically evaluating why the reality is like that. So why should we accept? For example, again, there are different power situations. Like for example, in a classroom, teacher and a student relationship. So if you look at the basic schools, primary or pre-primary schools, there is so much explicit trust in the teacher that whatever the teacher says is right. Right? That is the reality. Even the parents, if the parents are teaching something, that's not true because the teacher has said this. क्लास में मैम ने बताया या सर ने बताया तो वो सही है. You are wrong. Right? So that is the kind of power a teacher enjoys. That's why we say that teachers shape the minds of the students, because that is the power that the teacher holds and presents it as reality. Now again, a researcher will have to question why it should be there. Why is it that the teacher has said something and it should be accepted as universal truths? So again, that's another debate about the education system, etc., etc. So again, in a social hierarchy, if somebody is, for example, unquestionable, in the family, parents are unquestionable. In a classroom, teacher is unquestionable. ये जो डिस्कशन हम लोग करते हैं ये तो बहुत बाद में शायद हायर एजुकेशन लेवल पर आता है, बट आई थिंक अप टू स्कूल और 12th और इवन अंडर ग्रेजुएट लेवल there is hardly any discussion in the classroom because students are conditioned not to ask questions, and when you don't ask question you take whatever comes from the position of power, and power can be misused. You know, if you ask question the teacher might give you lesser marks, so that's another thing I don't want to ask questions about. Or if you ask question from the parents, they might beat you if you're a kid. So position of power can be exploited by whoever is in power. So, and the same will happen in case of even in a serious kind of a research. Is a researcher going to question the existing beliefs? Because the reality as is presented is probably created by those in power. So accordingly they write histories, they write theories, etc., etc. A criticism to this can be like, you see, we all have our own world views. हम सभी लोग, we all have our own world view. You know, by the time we grow, there is so much information that has been processed in our brains. There is so much knowledge that has come to us that we start looking at things in a certain way. Right? And there is something called ego defensive mechanism that we all have. So accepting that we are wrong is something very difficult for everybody. I mean, most human beings. Very rarely you'll have somebody who can easily accept that I'm wrong. So that ego defensive mechanism always works. So sometimes, for example, when we are in a position of power, we'll want the power to be there, and that is why we'll not let any criticism occur. Again, a teacher-student thing can be easily understood by this. Like if a student asks too many questions, and if the teacher is put in a very embarrassing situation, the teacher won't like it. I mean, most teachers won't like it. You know, I have rarely seen a teacher who says, okay, I'm sorry, I don't know this, kal main bataunga. Have you seen a teacher like that? It's very rarely. Yeah, you must have. All of us must have found at least one teacher in our life. But it's very rare कि कोई खुद से accept करे कि हाँ अभी I'm not sure about this. I'll get back to you tomorrow.
स्टूडेंट्स के सामने तो नहीं
नहीं सर, हम लोग बोलते हैं अगर कोई बच्चे पूछ लेते हैं कुछ ऐसा
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
जो हमें नहीं पता होता है तो हम कहते हैं कि सर
बिल्कुल।
अभी नहीं पता है, हम आपको कल बताएंगे, वो
Right.
देख के बताएंगे, हमें
बिल्कुल
कंफर्म नहीं है।
That is how it should happen ideally.
हाँ,
But ऐसा rarely होता है, बहुत कम लोग हम लोग ऐसे accept कर पाते हैं. Again that human ego etc. is there. The other thing is, again, when we are at a position of power, or in other words, when we are privileged, so we look at everything from the point of view of privilege. Now, at times it is deliberate, and at times it can be just because of conditioning. You know, हमें पता ही नहीं है कि दूसरा point of view क्या हो सकता है. So a lot of people have a life-changing experience when they actually are put into those situations. Like this person I know, he went to, it was the first time this person went to a tribal area, and it was a life-changing moment for him. From outside we can think about tribals are like this and this and this. From outside we can think about all these things. But once you are there, you start experiencing things. So when we are not there, we have a position of privilege. When we are there, we have to look at it from their point of view. So you can see all those new paradigms that are coming up in many types of research. For example, the feminist perspective. उस दिन वो डिस्कस कर रहे थे feminist economics or feminist perspective about advertising or any of these issues. Now this is from the perspective of the female. Now as a male researcher, because I'm in a privileged position, either I don't have to think about that point of view or I don't know about that point of view. तो बहुत से लोग कहेंगे इसमें खराब क्या है? Suppose somebody criticizes an ad जिसमें कि women को दिखाया जा रहा है कि they are, for example, if it's a washing machine ad, so they have a lady modeling for that. So if somebody asks a question that this is a case of gender stereotyping, somebody can say कि इसमें गलत क्या है? Now it can be an innocent remark कि इसमें गलत क्या है, ऐसा तो होता ही है. It is an innocent remark, but that comes from a privileged point of view because we don't know the other side of the story. तो इसमें भी दोनों चीजें हैं. एक तो हमारा वो privilege, अगर हम deliberately कर रहे हैं तो ये privilege की everyone is scared of the power going away. So long as stereotyping is there, the power is there. The moment it breaks, then people are very scared of losing the power. And you can see this in all situations. In teacher student, that's a very common thing for all of us to see. A teacher is always scared. Is always, not always, but almost always scared that the student might know more than the teacher. Or the student might ask a question that is embarrassing or that I may not know the answer of. So, so long as I have the privilege, I would avoid that situation. क्योंकि जहां आपने उसको सोचा कि नहीं ठीक है, so this, as the saying goes, spare the rod, spoil the child. So those kinds of things can be there. So social critical theory is one important theory. You can have ethical debates about it. For example, when an advertiser is said that your ad is stereotyping a section of society, then the ad maker or the marketer will say, we are not in the business of social change. Social change हम थोड़ी करेंगे, हम तो वो दिखा रहे हैं जो सोसाइटी में ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्ट कर रहा है. Now why do we expect an advertiser to make changes in the ad to suit this narrative? बताइए इसमें क्या गलत है? Why should an advertiser think about that?
The influencer.
Huh?
The influence.
Like?
Advertisement always influences.
Advertisement influences. So we are saying that it is reinforcing. पर advertiser तो ये कह रहे हैं ना कि जो सोसाइटी में हो रहा है वही तो हम कर रहे हैं. We are just following what is happening. And why should we take the onus upon ourselves to change the society? हम सोशल चेंज लाने का हम क्यों करें? क्योंकि कॉम्पिटिटर भी ये कर रहा है. तो अगर हम सोशल चेंज लाने के चक्कर में पड़ेंगे तो कॉम्पिटिटर विल गो अहेड, वी लूज मार्केट शेयर. You can see this kind of ethical dilemma is there. On the other hand, we see that advertisers, that's a particular example. I'm from marketing area, so I have examples from that only. But you can see that there will be a time when advertisers, marketers, or anybody who is in a privileged position will have to think about it. In case of a company, they may feel that there is a growing public sentiment against them.
Like they did change the ad for Cadbury's.
Okay.
There was an ad many years back, Cadbury's, I don't know if anybody has seen.
Mm-hmm.
It was first by, it was about a cricketer, it was male centric, and now it is.
Right. So recently they have reversed the ad.
They have reversed
That
the
that's become very popular. Right. So that's a good example that they have done it. But a good example of how the public sentiments uh, force a company to do things. The whole Fair and Lovely branding, उन्होंने नाम ही चेंज कर दिया.
जी
Right? बहुत सालों तक उनको ये क्रिटिसिज्म था कि दे आर प्रमोटिंग डिस्क्रिमिनेशन, body shaming as it is called. If you're not fair, you are bad. So in order to be good, you have to be fair. And they linked it with many things. You're not liked, you're not getting jobs, etc. etc. So इंटरव्यू में आप जा रहे हैं तो आप सेलेक्ट हो जाते हैं और अलग अलग सिचुएशन में you become successful. But for many years there has been continuous criticism. Eventually, they actually changed the brand name itself. So ठीक है, social change इतनी जल्दी नहीं आएगा, but lot of people have researched about it. I told you about that MPhil thesis. बाद में मैंने देखा ऑनलाइन तो ऐसे बहुत से स्टडीज हैं PhD लेवल के या और लेवल के जो कि इन चीज़ों को स्टडी करते हैं. They are published and people read and then they follow. In fact, companies also do it. Companies भी जो है वो they try to measure what is going on. Instead of just following, they want to be the opinion leaders. So that is about the social critical kind of things. Right? So broadly, for all these, we can have a positivist approach where we are looking at quantitative, objective analysis methods, etc., and qualitative when we are using induction, deduction, and induction. Right? Okay. Now, in most of our research, economics, management, commerce, or any other social sciences, we follow the positivist or post-positivist point of view, and we follow what we call again I'm giving you big words, but they'll all be helpful. Hypothetical deductive approach. So रिसर्च मेथोडोलॉजी में जो भी आपने किताबें कभी भी पढ़ी होंगी उसमें वो स्टेप्स ऑफ रिसर्च बताते हैं ना, पहले ये होता है फिर ये होता है and so on. So basically it is just like that. Hypothetical deductive. So there are again अलग अलग किताबों में अलग अलग स्टेप्स, नॉमेनक्लेचर थोड़ा अलग हो जाता है, नंबर ऑफ स्टेप्स अलग अलग हो जाते हैं, कहीं पे 5 होता है कहीं पे 7 होता है. दैट्स फाइन, मोर और लेस सब एक ही चीज को फॉलो करते हैं. We'll try to understand how it is used in real life. Right. So the 7 steps from where I have taken, it is 7 steps there. But again, depends upon whichever book or author you are following, you can choose. So कोई fixed नहीं है. So the 7 steps: observation, preliminary, information gathering, formulation of a theory, leading to hypothesizing. Then scientific data collection. Analysis and deduction. कुछ वैसा ही है जो आप लोगों ने देखा होगा, but just a different perspective. So every research begins with an observation. Somebody somewhere feels that this is something that needs more investigation. Right? Just by having a keen observational mind, one can see things. One may be wrong. ऐसा नहीं है कि पहले देखते समझ में आ गया. We may be wrong, but again, nothing is wrong if we observe things more keenly. But once we know that, it's like a gut feeling. You are observing something and there is a gut feeling that, okay, this is something जिसके बारे में मुझे और information चाहिए. So we go to the next stage. Preliminary information gathering. So हमारे मन में कुछ gut feeling है किसी area, किसी subject या किसी research area के बारे में. So we start conducting some preliminary data about that, some preliminary information. We go to websites, we read articles, कुछ लोगों से बात करते हैं, those you consider कि उनको थोड़ा इस बारे में idea होगा, उस particular field के experts हो सकते हैं या users हो सकते हैं, suppose you are talking about a product, उसके users हो सकते हैं या anybody. So you can collect preliminary information. And why we are collecting preliminary information? It is because we want to confirm कि जो हम observe कर रहे हैं वो सही direction में है कि नहीं. Now after having this preliminary information gathering, we can decide whether to go ahead with this idea. Right? So this preliminary information gathering is more informal. It's not really a formal questionnaire or ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. We just talking to people. अलग-अलग sources से हम कुछ पढ़ रहे हैं उसके बारे में. Just to verify कि जो हम सोच रहे हैं वो सही direction में है कि नहीं. Once it concurs with our observation, फिर हम सोचते हैं कि नहीं, now we have to seriously go towards it. Then we go to formulate a broad theory. Hypothesis actually जो बाद में आएगा वो narrow down करना होता है. But we are broadly thinking about linkages. इसका उसके साथ correlation है. This thing has a link with something. So we are broadly formulating a theory कि ऐसा ऐसा हो सकता है. And then we start writing statements of hypothesis, hypothesizing. And in hypothesizing we are, another step nearer to the deductive research. In hypothesizing we are, कोई भी hypothesis आप एक जो भी याद हो आपको, you can think of any hypothesis. It is about deducing something. So you are doing a deductive research now. And then data collection, सभी को मालूम है how to collect the data, analyze it and then conclude. Or here I have written deduction, conclusion, deduction या जो भी आप लिखे उसको. Okay. So very quickly we'll take a real life example. Once again, this is an example from a company, but again, आप लोग सोचेंगे तो आपको भी ऐसे examples मिल जाएंगे. During late 60s, early 70s, top management of a company, Coke in this case, उन्होंने कुछ observe किया. In fact, एक बंदा था जिसने observe किया, some senior vice president or somebody. और वो observation ये था कि he had a feeling that there is a change in consumers' tastes and preferences. कुछ change हो रहा है, क्या change हो रहा है उसको नहीं पता था. But he had this feeling that something is changing. So whenever he went to a cafe or a restaurant, कुछ उसको समझ में आ रहा था. So he was intrigued by this. So फिर उसने उसके बारे में और information collect करना चाहा कि whether what he thinks is right or not. So informally he talked to people. For example, he talked to a few consumers in a restaurant about soft drink को कौन सा यूज करते हैं या कौन सा बेवरेज वो यूज कर रहे हैं, इस तरह के इंफॉर्मेशन हो. साथ ही साथ उसने पढ़ना शुरू किया. And actually his gut feeling was that people in general are becoming more health conscious. More health conscious. Now it had something to do with the existing American socio-cultural environment. Late 60s, early 70s में US में बहुत ज़्यादा anti-war sentiment था because of the Vietnam War. बहुत anti-war protests और ये सब चल रहे थे. The whole hippie culture started around that time. People were rejecting existing norms of society, etc. The typical term that Americans used, couch potato. People who would sit on the couch and watch television. Obesity was a very common problem. It is still a very common problem in the US population. So, but ये observation था कि people are becoming a bit more health conscious. Right? So preliminary information gathering में उन्होंने अलग-अलग sources से information gather की. For example, they gathered information related to, how do I know कि लोग ज़्यादा health conscious हो गए? Right. So उसके लिए one could observe कि हाँ gyms में भीड़ बढ़ने लगी है. People are buying books related to food and nutrition and health. उनकी sale बढ़ गई है. So these would be a few things that would make them believe that हाँ ऐसा कुछ हो रहा है, actually हो रहा है. So now then they would conduct a research by अब ये theory formulate हो गई कि हाँ ऐसा कुछ हो रहा है. Now what would be the impact of this trend on sale of their products? What would be the impact? Right. So इसको लेके now they have to hypothesize. उनको एक hypothesis बनाना पड़ेगा to measure कि ये जो वो सोच रहे हैं वो सही है कि नहीं. You can make a hypothesis, create a hypothesis. Whether the health consciousness will be negative or will affect negatively the sale of our products, because we all know Coke is not a very healthy drink. A 300 ml bottle contains only calories, no nutrition, zero nutrition and all the calories, more than 100 calories in a 300 ml bottle, right? So अब वो hypothesizing करेंगे, then they would go for scientific data collection using whatever techniques we use. Then they would analyze the data and come to a conclusion, deduction कि वाकई ऐसा होगा या नहीं होगा. In this case, they found कि हाँ ऐसा होगा, and therefore the Coke decided to do their some R&D and something more about launching low calorie or zero calorie drinks. So Diet Coke was a result of this thing only, right? So that is another thing. वो deduction के बाद फिर उन्होंने आगे क्या strategize किया. That's how it happened in the real world with a company. Now when a company conducts a research and when we as independent researchers हम लोग PhD के लिए जो करेंगे, कोई बहुत फर्क नहीं है दोनों में, right? Only is our objectives may be different, everything else is the similar thing. So हम ये सारी चीजें follow करेंगे, right? So that's all for today. If you have any